Hey, what's going on? Luke here. For today's video, we're going to be doing a review of round 2 of the 2021 NRL season. Now, I'll be honest, I saw most of the games. I didn't see all of them, but I've watched all the highlights. I've kind of got the general consensus on the games, so I'm just going to be doing a general sort of review. If you want an in-depth one, go and watch the Fox Sports shows, because if you came here looking for an analysis, that's not it. I'm just going to give a general opinion. I'm not going to go into stats and all that sort of stuff. So with that in mind, let's get into the first game, and that first game is the Parramatta Eels picking up a victory over the Melbourne Storm, 16-12. Fantastic game. I actually thought the Storm were going to get them in the end. In my opinion, the Eels were all over him, though. When you actually watch the game, I feel like the scoreline doesn't really reflect it. I thought the Eels were clearly the better side, and yet I still thought the Storm would get them in the end. I just thought it'd be one of those games where the Eels would just drop off in the last 10 minutes. They sort of have a tendency to do that, and yet they stuck solid. And I've already done a video where I went over the game more in depth, and I talked about how I think the Eels are the real deal this year. But look, I'll be honest, Clint Gutherson, I've always thought he was a good fullback, but I didn't think he was an elite fullback. And I think so far in the first 2 games, he's been absolutely outstanding. Just makes all those effort plays. He's always made the effort plays, but it's just even more so he's doing it. Just his ability to get in there. There was a moment where he stopped the try, like he knocked the ball out, and I think they ended up scoring off it a couple of tackles later. But at the same time, just the fact that he got there and made the play, it's such a big thing, and he's your captain, so he's your leader. You need your leader to step up, and that's exactly what he's doing in the early rounds. Now, obviously, it's very early on. You don't want to look too much into it, but the Eels, they're looking bloody good. They're looking very, very good. 4-pack, super strong. I think once they get used to the swap that the second rows have done, I think they'll be a lot better in that regards too. I thought Nrl was really good in the centres. His little battle with Olam, I thought it was quite good. I think Olam got over him once, but apart from that, it was all Nrl. For the Storm, there wasn't too many standouts, so it's kind of just a grinding game. Just the weather in Sydney has been absolutely shithouse. So it wasn't exactly a free-flowing game. There wasn't a lot of ball playing. There wasn't a lot of movement, and I think that's what the Storm are going to be doing this year. We saw last week against the Rabbitohs, the very first set, they were offloading at will, and it's not really conditions to do it. So I think that did hamper the Storm, but the Eels, they were just way too good. They picked up the victory, and even though it was in a close fashion and it took a late Sevo try, I think it was thoroughly deserved. Moving on to the second game, it's the Newcastle Knights defeating the New Zealand Warriors 20-16. A home game for the Warriors, despite it not being at home, obviously. But this one is a game I didn't see a lot of because I was at work. But the parts I did see of it, it was a pretty decent little contest. And I feel like the scoreline is quite fitting of where you would have seen the teams going into the game. Both teams coming off wins last week, starting off the season strong. Going into this one, I feel like it could have been a toss-up of who won. Obviously, the Knights got the points. And I think it's just a classiness of the Knights forward pack. They just got so many good players, so many rep players. And I think that's going to get them over the line more times than not. I mean, you look at the back line, it's not exactly the best, despite having Bradman best. But even the halves, it's not a fantastic back line, especially without Kalen Ponga. Yeah, Kalen Ponga to it, and it's a whole different dynamic. But just at the moment. But the Warriors side, look, they can only defend for so long. Last week, they got away with it against the Titans because the Titans were a bit off. This time, the Knights were on, and although it went down to the wire, Knights got the job done, and I do think it was deserved. But then at the same time, if Warriors had scored a late try as well, I probably would have said it was deserved too. So either way, I would have been happy with the winner there. But the Knights picking up the victory. Actually, just before I move on from this game, I just want to mention Jaden Brayley. How good has he been? He's come back 2 games in. He's been one of the form hookers of the comp, scoring tries left, right, and centre. He's been killing it, and what a huge addition he's been to the Knights. I made a video about it specifically in the off-season, and I said Jaden Brayley is going to be a huge addition to the Knights. A big problem for the Knights is they haven't had a hooker, and every time they buy someone, they end up getting injured, and they're out for the season in the first round. So the fact that he's got through 2 rounds, I think it's a good time for the Knights, which sounds really weird. Oh, got through 2 rounds, but that's literally how it's been for the Knights. They get injured in the first round, they're big money signing, and then they're out for the season and usually retire. So the fact that he's come back and he's actually playing really, really well, I think it's good times for the Knights. Now moving on to the third game, it's the Gold Coast Titans who picked up a victory of the Brisbane Broncos, 28-16. A very, very dominant victory for the Gold Coast Titans, especially after last week, hitting back. The Warriors game was not a good one for them, but there were a lot of good signs in the sense that they were creating chances, they just weren't able to finish them off. So they came into the Broncos game, they knew they had to finish, and that's exactly what they did. Fafita and Big Tino scoring tries. It was a really, really good performance from them. Just very, very clinical. The Broncos weren't exactly terrible too. I thought there were times when they were in the game. The Titans just ran over them in the end. And I think the Broncos, they got a lot of work to do. And there's already starting to be a bit of infighting with old Kevy Walters and Gordon Tallis coming out and saying stuff. But look, this Titan side, they are a very, very good side. So there's no shame in losing to them. And I feel like they've got the Bulldogs next week, the Broncos. I think they're definitely a chance of winning that one. So I feel like Broncos fans, just relax for a bit. Because Titans, although in the past couple of seasons haven't been great, this year I think they're going to be pretty good. And despite them losing last week, that's definitely not what the Titans are about. I think they're going to win a lot of games this year, and they just got quite unlucky last week in terms of they weren't finishing the tries, and this time they did. That's as simple as that. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And yeah, the 4 packs, they just rolled through them, and they're very, very good. So yeah, great performance from the Titans. Broncos, not so much, but at the same time, they weren't absolutely terrible. So just relax, Broncos fans. Now into the 4th game of the round, it was my Bulldogs taking on Penrith, 28-0, absolute flogging for Penrith. I wish I could sit here and say the Bulldogs were good or they showed good signs, but just really wasn't the case. Just like last week, I suppose up to about the half-hour mark, Bulldogs were in the contest, but you just knew that the Panthers would eventually roll over them. It was just a matter of when. I will say though, the disallowed try, it obviously was a no try, but it was like a small little glimmer of hope for the Bulldogs. And at that point, if it had been awarded, they would have been ahead. So that would have been a good little fun fact for the video, I guess. I think Penrith would have ended up still putting on 28 or whatever. But yeah, look, I feel like the Bulldogs aren't getting the rub of the green in terms of penalties and that. But at the same time, you got to create your own luck sometimes. And there's no debating this. Penrith were going to win this game easily. In my preview, I said Penrith were going to absolutely flog them. But at the same time, at half time, there's just that little glimmer of hope, and you're like, oh, maybe. And you kind of get that little bias going for you. And I was like, oh, maybe Bulldogs can snag a win here. I mean, it's wet weather. Conditions absolutely atrocious. It was funny seeing the field. The markings were pretty much gone by like half time. And there's so many times where teams would put in a kick and the fullback will come across and dive onto the ball and they'd slide and they get tackled. And I'm like, oh, they're out of the in-goal or they're in the in-goal. Like, I'd get it wrong all the time. The players would make a dive and I'd be like, oh yeah, they've brought him back. And no, he'd be in the field to play. Even times when players were scoring tries and that, I'm like, oh, were they over the line? Or like, so it would have been an interesting dynamic to have seen if there was a time when a player sort of reached out for the line. And how do they decipher that? Is it just, you just have a guess? I don't know. But obviously it didn't end up happening, but it would have been pretty fun to see. And I don't know how many times you're going to see conditions like that. So yeah, maybe we'll never know. But it would have been pretty cool to see. But yeah, Penrith, they were just very clinical. Jerome Luai was absolutely outstanding. Obviously, Nathan Cleary got his head taken off at the end. And Watene Zelezniak, he's just so frustrating. I will say, though, that first try, I thought was an obstruction, but look, it doesn't really matter in the end. But yeah, that's what I mean. Just Bulldogs not getting the rub of the green. Sometimes it would have been called, sometimes it wouldn't. And when you got a team like the Bulldogs, you need the rub of the green, especially playing Penrith. So look, it was a good effort at times, but Penrith just run over the top of them. Now moving on to the second game of Saturday, South Sydney Rabbitohs picking up victory over Manly, 26-12. At one point, look, Manly got very, very close. I think the money to power try got them back into the game, the little offload. But look, it was Rabbitohs pretty much. I'm not going to say from start to finish because obviously Manly had their little flurry, but Rabbitohs were in pretty much control for most of the game. Obviously ran away with it in the end there, picking up 13+ victory, which I thought was going to happen, but it was a little bit closer than what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't exactly like last week, and that was going to happen at Brookvale. And once again, the conditions were absolutely terrible. Pretty much all of the games in Sydney were just absolutely terrible conditions throughout the weekend. But yeah, this one, it was no different to the previous one that I was just talking about in terms of the Bulldogs. Yeah, this one was just, it was not good. But the Manly side, I really don't know where you go from there because there's not really too many things they can change. They're just not winning. But I suppose for them, they can look at the positive in the sense that they played the Roosters and they played the Rabbitohs, two of the premiership favourites. So look, games after this one, apart from maybe like your Penriths and Raiders and stuff, they're going to be easier than that. So look, if they can have a competitive game with the Rabbitohs, you think it would be able to have a competitive game with, say, like the Dragons or the Bulldogs. So look, that's a positive for them. They've got a good halves pairing in terms of Cherry Evans and forward. Need a little bit more time to work on their combo probably. See hooker, like Lachlan Croker scored a try, but they still got a guy who's a makeshift hooker, and their backup option is also a makeshift hooker in Kate Cuss. They got a makeshift fullback. They got makeshift players everywhere on the side. So there is a lot of upside for Manly in terms of them getting better throughout the year because this is such a injury-ravaged side. I say injury-ravaged side, but look, Tom Trbojevic is pretty much the only one I can really think of because they just don't have a hooker and their fullback is not injured. So it's going to take time for them to get sorted, but if there's any coach who can get it done, I think it's Des Hasler, and he's got enough troops around him. Still got your Marty Tapauzi, Cherry Evans, Foran. You still got those sort of guys who I think can bring them up to win at least a couple of games. So Manly might be alright, but look, the Rabbitohs, they were pretty strong. Latrell Mitchell was good. Cody Walker's good. Look, all the players stood up when they needed to. The big name players, Adam Reynolds, Damien Cook scored a try. Like it was a good performance from them in the end, but I will say they need to do a lot better than that against teams that are a little bit better than Manly. Like, I think it was a sure thing that they were going to win. It was just a matter of how much. And the fact that Manly got so close, I think, is a little bit of a worry. But at the same time, they got to win, so you can't really complain too much. Now, into the last game of Saturday. This one really surprised me. The Dragons picking up victory against the Cowboys, 25-18. Not a late field goal, but a field goal at half-time to Corey Norman from quite a distance. I think he just said that he just got the ball and just went, I'll stuff it. But it turned out to be quite influential in the game, in my opinion, because Cowboys had a lot of ball. It felt like the last 10-15 minutes, they were just pounding the Dragons' try line, and Dragons were holding them out. But it was always that pressure of, well, they've got to score and kick the goal, and then they still got to kick a field goal. So it wasn't just a one-try possession sort of thing. They needed 2 scoring opportunities, and had it been a 24 point instead of 25, maybe it would have happened. Maybe the Dragons would have crumbled a little bit more, but they held on, they defended brilliantly. And that was one thing that I did note, that the Dragons were defending really, really well, which, considering in the trials, we saw them, like the Rabbitohs just ran straight through them, but this was so much better. Like, they were actually defending really well, and I was actually shocked. And look, the Cowboys don't have the best side, but they have enough guys that, look, you can just produce one little bit of magic. Your Michael Morgans, Valentine Holmes, all it takes is just one little lapse in concentration and they're through the gap. But it didn't happen. The Dragons held strong. In terms of the rest of the game, I'll be honest, I was kind of in and out. I'd had a little bit to drink at this point, plus I wasn't really paying attention to the game because Cowboys came out super strong. So I thought, oh, Cowboys, they're going to run away with this. And just like last week, Dragons came back. Maybe that's going to be the story to the Dragons season. They're going to be one of those like no give up sort of teams. That's probably what they're going to have to do. I saw Ben Hunt's little try not through the dummy. Did he throw a dummy? I don't know. He just ran through the gap, went through, scored, slammed it, kicked the ball into the crowd, and you can see the footage. There's a nice little video. I think the Nrl Round posted it. You can see like the game footage and then goes to the crowd footage of when the ball goes up and it just hits this person in the face. I thought it was the best moment of the game in my opinion, and it wasn't even like a part of the game. But yeah, the game, it did surprise me in the sense I didn't think the Dragons were going to win. But once the news came out that Jason Taumalolo was out, I was like, oh, well, maybe Dragons are a chance. But I was still thinking purely because it was a North Queensland home game that they'd get the job done. But obviously it wasn't meant to be. And I even thought in the end that they might have snagged a couple lucky tries there. But it didn't happen. And the Dragons, they held on. And this is definitely warning signs for my Bulldogs in terms of the wooden spoon. Now, just before we get into the Sunday games, I just got to touch on this one. I was at work all day, so I didn't really get to see these ones. I've just watched the highlights. So we're going to be talking about the first game. It's the Roosters up against the Tigers. A 40-6 win for the Roosters. Not exactly shocking. I thought this one was coming. I picked 13 plus for the Roosters. The only thing is the Tigers are so unpredictable. You would expect them to maybe attack a little bit better. And even in the highlights, there were a couple line breaks and stuff, but they just couldn't finish them off. It was always a good last-ditch tackle by James Tedesco or Luke Keary. Someone else. Just someone was making a last-ditch tackle. Now, in terms of the Tigers, I've seen a lot of people talk about Dane Laurie and say he was the bright point for him, but that was pretty much it. And just judging by the scoreline and the tries that I saw, that was pretty much it. Look, there was just a lot of tries scored down the edge. Brett Morris obviously got a hat-trick. Tedesco got 2. Look, that's 2 hat-tricks in a row for Brett Morris to start the season. I believe he's the first to have done it ever, I think. I think that was the stat that they're throwing around. So good stuff, Brett Morris. It's just crazy how, for a person playing the wing, usually they get into their 30s, their speed dies off, and that's them done. But ever since he's been at the Roosters, he's just gone to another level. You're adding Josh there, and I think that even helps him even more. Just a fantastic side the Roosters have. A very, very scary side. And you don't want to buy into the first couple of rounds too much because, especially the Roosters in particular, because they played Manly and the Tigers, not exactly two star-studded sides. But at the same time, they've looked very, very good. But look, they are playing terrible sides. So you would expect them to run up a score, but just the fact that they've done it, look, there are teams that are susceptible to doing that. I look at a side like the Eels, when they took on the Broncos, I feel like they underestimated them. They thought they just roll through them and just cruise by to a victory, and it didn't happen. They had to come back and they had to win. Yet we saw them against the Storm, it was a completely different side. The Roosters, I thought they could have done that. They could have had the tendency to do that, come out and go, oh, it's just the Tigers. We don't really need to try too much. We'll just get through the game unscathed, no injuries. We should be right. But they came out, balls to the wall, they just went for it, and they did it last week too, and yeah, they're absolutely outstanding so far. Don't really tend to see the Roosters hit the ground running in the season. Usually they build towards the end, so this is a different sort of side for the Roosters. We'll see how it pays off at the end of the season, or whether it pays off, but yeah, the whole Luke Keary switch to halfback, I think it's looking really good, plus the whole back line is so classy. The forwards, even without Crichton and Cordner, still very, very good. They've just got a very, very good squad, the Roosters in general. So I think it's safe to say that they're back being a premiership contender, they're back possibly even being a premiership favourite. So yeah, the Roosters looking very good early on. Now into the last game of the round, it was the Canberra Raiders picking up a 12-10 victory over the Cronulla Sharks. Now this one, I thought the Raiders were going to win, and I thought it would be a close one, but then the game started happening and I was like, I don't know why it's going to be close. I feel like the Raiders clearly have the better side. Yet as the game went on, the Sharks just kept hanging around, and even in terms of chances, it was like the Raiders would have a chance and then the Sharks would have a chance. It wasn't a game of the Raiders just constantly just going at the Sharks and Sharks kept holding them off and scored a couple of lucky tries. No, it was quite back and forth. It was quite competitive, and I thought it was a really entertaining game despite the conditions. I will say for the Sharks, I feel like Matty Moylan's looking quite good in the fly-out position. Not sure about Townsend. Obviously had a couple chances late on to even the game / win the game if he'd actually kicked the goals. But he missed, but that they were from out wide. So I'll let him off this one. He's not a renowned goal kicker. I think this is the first year he's ever really goal kicked. So just I wouldn't worry about it with Chad Townsend in terms of the Sharks. He's obviously going to get better as he gets more practice kicking and that sort of stuff. But look, it is obviously disappointing. But it does feel like one of those games that had he even it didn't feel right. It felt like even though they got close, they were never really going to win it. It felt like the Raiders, I wouldn't say they were going to run away with it, but I just felt like they were going to hold on for a victory. I didn't think they were going to suddenly pile on the points. But yeah, the Sharks, they definitely did try. They definitely did get close. I think guys like Toby Rudolph are really good for them. But look, the Raiders, they're the Raiders. They're just really good. They have a really good squad. I was talking about the Roosters having a really good squad. This Raiders side definitely has a good squad. You look at their team now and you realise that they're still missing players. I think that's a scary sign for them. The new little Sebastian Chris, I think his name is, he looks quite good in the centres. Look, the halves are just as good as ever. Just Chance, I think he's looking even better than last year. Look, their side is looking very, very good. Hudson Young picking up a try. He's found himself more comfortable in the second row. Wasn't sure what he was going to end up like considering all those sort of suspensions he had last year or the year before, whenever it was. But look, he's looking to be a real star second rower. And you got Harry and Ora to come back into the side. And you got Corey Horsburgh as well to come back. So there's a couple of people to come in. But like Ryan James, he's looking really good. I'm really happy for him. He's making line breaks, scoring tries. He's doing everything. But yeah, in terms of the Raiders, it wasn't their finest performance, but they got the job done against a tough, gritty Shark side, and I think that's a really good victory, and that really impressed me. Righto, guys, that's my review of round 2. Leave in the comment section below, were there any star teams? Did anyone stand out? Did you think it was a good round in general? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, while you're at it, if you did happen to enjoy this video, make sure you go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. The sub boxes, they're super dodgy. I know it, you know it. Look, just turn on the notification bell. You just get a little notification on your phone or your laptop, whatever it is, your tablet, whatever you're using, whatever device. Get a notification, click on it, you can leave a comment, you can say first, you can do whatever you want, but just turn on that bell, just do it for me. Also, what you can do for me is give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part, Mr. Luke just for Facebook, but everything else, Mr. Luke and YT, Snapchat included, it's all on the screen right now, so go ahead and do that. But yeah, that's all I've got to say for this one. That's my round 2 review. I'll see you in the next one. See yas!